I'm making this video to kind of explain this app that I deployed. Part of the reason why I'm making this is because I have a cousin and some other friends who are really trying to learn the discipline of whatever this is right here. And I thought that maybe sharing my experience might be of value, and also because I've been kind of radio silent on LinkedIn, and recruiters, I guess, skip over you if you're not an active account. So there's that. And I guess before I proceed, my web dev professor, who I also TA'd under, recently connected with me on LinkedIn. So if you're watching, thank you for imparting the knowledge and the discipline. So also, what might need to be explained here is what Letterboxd is. It's kind of just like an IMDb where you rate movies and mark them as watched, and make reviews and whatnot. So there's this paid feature for Letterboxd, and I'm going to show it right here, where if you have a pro account, then you can have them plot the distribution of release years of the movies that you've watched. So for example, I've seen 12 movies from 1973. 1973 actually has a lot of good movies. And a very niche thing that happens with a certain subset of Letterboxd users is where they'll share that a screenshot of this release year distribution and kind of flex it's a mark of how cultured they are. It's that scene in American Psycho where they trade business cards. It's a pretty stupid thing, but for the past 2, maybe 3 years, I've been kind of obsessed with shaping the distribution very deliberately. And it's led me to watch some movies that I wouldn't have seen before. So really built my cultural capital. So I'm just gonna give a demo real quick using my Letterboxd account. So it'll scrape my Letterboxd profile, and the back end will, which is a Spring Boot app, will scrape my profile and generate this distribution and send it to the front end where it'll be plotted. And then I can make a line of best fit on it, and I can tune these parameters to, I guess, yeah. But the one that I usually do is from 1920 to 2008. So what I do specifically is every so often I will update this distribution, plot a line of best fit on it, and then there are these residuals, which is essentially the actual value versus the regression line predicted value. So if it's less than, then it means you've actually seen less than the regression predicted value. So what I would do is I would watch a movie from the year with the lowest residual. So in this case, it's 1970. I think I planned to watch Wanda, directed by Barbara Loden, or MASH, directed by Robert Altman. And then for 1959, it's going to be Anatomy of a Murder by Otto Preminger. And then 1966, it's going to be Seconds by John Frankenheimer. 1991, I think it's going to be a Godzilla movie. 1948, The Red Shoes, yada yada. So this is a very meticulous process that I plan out well in advance. And as you can see, my distribution is actually quite smooth, and every so often I will just look at it to appreciate how cultured I am. So let's pull up my cousin's distribution very quickly. So yeah, let's clown on him for how uncultured he is because of how skewed this distribution is. He only watches recent movies. He's not much of a cinephile because he hasn't broadened his horizons, or something to that effect. And then let me just look at something real quick. So let's look at another profile. So this is this artist, comic book artist I follow. I found that he has a Letterboxd, Jacob Phillips, son of Sean Phillips. He's currently making a series, Everything Dead and Dying, which is pretty good. So this is some other person's distribution, but you might have noticed that the previous distributions I've loaded in were much faster than this one. So why that happens is there is a caching layer to all of this. So Spring Boot, if the distribution is not cached, then it'll fetch it from, scrape it from the Letterboxd website and then save it to the cache. So right now it's just arbitrarily 3 days. I don't really have enough users for that to matter. So kind of what I just do a lot is like, whenever I just log a movie watched on Letterboxd, it doesn't need, I don't even wait for this like 3 day time period to expire. I will just like delete it and have it recalculated like that. That's kind of how obsessive I am over this. But I do have a very well-shaped distribution. So I guess now I should explain the tech stack. So I have the EC2 symbol here, but it's actually deployed on DigitalOcean. And they call their virtual remote machines droplets. So DigitalOcean is just AWS on easy mode. I actually switched between deployments, and right now, since I'm just doing things faster on DigitalOcean, I'll just probably do it on DigitalOcean now and then have like a more final version on AWS. But that's besides the point. So mostly this was for me to learn deployment, and there are 3 Docker containers running in all of this. So previously, when I was using Docker, it was really only for the case of like with grouped projects, we would use Docker to standardize the development environment and the testing environment for whoever's grading it. Or if I was reading a textbook on like Postgres or Elasticsearch or whatever, I would just have the Dockerized container because the textbook would ask that you use a certain version, and it just makes switching versions easier than just having it on your host machine. So this was the first time I actually used it with intent to deploy, and also don't mind how bad this looks right now. This is my first time using GIMP, which is I guess, Linux equivalent of Photoshop. So yeah, there was actually this one time where I opened up a pirated version, not expired licensed version of Adobe Photoshop, and in an interview just to like draw out an architecture diagram, and I got the notification saying that it was an expired license, and that was actually pretty embarrassing to happen in an interview. But that's besides the point. So there are 3 containers within this single EC2 instance. I'm just going to say EC2 instance, but it's really just a DigitalOcean droplet. Same turd, different toilet. But there is Nginx, there is Spring Boot, which does the web scraping from Letterboxd, and then there's a separate container for Redis, and I'll explain the downside to that later. So in case someone watching might not know this, especially Mustafa probably doesn't know this. So you send a request to port 80 on the EC2 instance. Whenever you go to a website in the web browser, it'll usually default to the port 80 or 443 of the IP address it resolves to. So port 80 will forward itself to this Nginx reverse proxy. So what that's kind of doing right now is like it's kind of like being the single entry point into the Spring Boot application. And what else? A bunch of file paths, a bunch of like bogus requests just will not hit the Spring Boot container. I mean, there's something called like a file traversal path, which kind of gets spammed in an automated way against this web service when I look at the logs. So Nginx is kind of there to just ensure that none of those actually reach the Spring Boot instance. So So then Spring Boot also natively just by default runs on port 8080. So what Nginx will do is on the base route, it'll serve the React app back to the web browser, and then API calls from the web browser, but still intended for port 80 from the web browser side. It'll identify it as a API call meant for Spring Boot and then forward it accordingly. Um, Let me just look at my notes right now. But yeah, there was just a bit of networking between Docker containers. Um, I think in the future I might use Nginx to resolve some CORS stuff on the Nginx side. I'll have to look into that later. But yeah, Nginx and Spring Boot I had to build off of Alpine Linux base images. I believe there is a terp image sorry, a Docker image out there for Spring Boot that's like has Maven already installed, and the free JDK, the unlicensed JDK that already comes pre-installed. So pro tip, if you're ever doing something like this. And then wrote the Docker files to build the Nginx and Spring Boot containers. Redis, you could kind of just use one of the default images and set it up with, I guess, command line arguments that way. Pretty simple to do it in the Docker Compose. So, yeah. I guess I should pull up the to-do list for all of this. So, I already removed the default icons from the app. I will have to rename the app too, because I'm not sure if you noticed, but LB dist frontend is not a very professional sounding, I guess, anything. What else? So, an earlier idea was to, let me pull up the diagram. Since, RAM is expensive already and is only going to get worse, maybe the idea would have been to kind of save the save these objects in MongoDB on disk, because my EC2 instance right now, I think it has 2 gigabytes of RAM and then 10 gigabytes of NVMe storage, SSD storage. So that might be a more optimized way of doing this, because MongoDB, similar to Redis, has this way of automatically expiring documents or whatever key values in Redis's case. So there's like this field you can attach to a MongoDB document, and then MongoDB, whatever engine, will just read it and expire it. I could also use a SQL database, but in my research I found with most SQL database, if you wanted to expire a record, you would have to just have a cron job set up to do that, and I'm not going to do all that. But even more optimal, so all of these 3 containers, they're all like Docker containers on a single EC2 instance. And I mean, I can't really imagine this app, scaling out to like needing to have a dedicated or managed database that the EC2 instances all read to. So like this Redis is out here, or MongoDB or whatever. So even better is to just like get rid of this entirely and just have it cached within the Spring Boot app. So I'm not worrying about spinning up another Docker container or whatever. And, even on top of just the Redis process, there's the overhead of just having a container. So right now I am on the 2 gigabyte of RAM virtual machine, but hopefully I might be able to get that down to the cheaper 1 gigabyte virtual machine. And that is, gonna be cheaper. What else is there to do? rate limiting, having a health check endpoint, uh, logging. I really haven't checked how large my log files are right now, and maybe I should set a max size. Um, yeah, my error handling on my Spring Boot backend, that is kind of a mess. Maybe listing to the users that the caching strategy is their distribution is really or whatever information is only going to be cached for 3 days. Um, you might notice that I only showed this app from my desktop. When I tried testing this on my phone, it looked horrible. Like the width of this search bar container was not matching the width of whatever this container here was. And then it's also just this plotting library that exists on that runs on the client side of the React app. It is kind of a pain to use on a phone. Um, Honestly, I'm not really sure if I like this plotting library in general. I'll probably replace it with a different one, because it's just like, let's say someone like intends to zoom in, it does this, which is, I don't know, I just don't like it. What else is there on the to-do list? Yep. So right now I am in the process of making my deployment in such a way where it can toggle between using Redis and spinning up a Redis container, or just using cache within the Spring Boot uh, container, or within the Spring Boot app or process. So managing Docker composes and Docker files is kind of a mess right now. If I just wanted to like have one switch to flip, or environment variable to set, or use a specific Spring profile, yada yada. That's kind of what I'm working on right now. And then after that, there's the SSL certificate and domain name. Um, right now, the traffic is unencrypted. So, like, if you put in the password that you use for every account as a username and hit search, you're essentially just screaming that out loud for just whoever to look at. Not very secure. But honestly, if you were putting your passwords or social security numbers in your letterboxed usernames, that's kind of a you problem. I wouldn't really personally take responsibility for identity theft. Um, Sue me if you want to. What else? Uh, having a tip jar, in actually having a tip jar to, like, I don't know, get some spare money out of this. I don't think I'll scale to more than like 12 users, so that might be useless. Um, but also, I kind of don't like Spring Boot. I mean, I've learned a lot from learning Spring Boot. I still don't like it. I'd rather be writing in Express. Um, and then GitHub Actions would be nice. I believe that's just like you make a push to a public GitHub repository, and for free that'll execute some commands on your remote machine to kind of update update the deployed version to be more like whatever you push to a GitHub repository. Um, so yeah, I think I covered all my bases for now. Um, yeah, so I hope whoever sees this finds it helpful.